Wicked was just the most recent adaptation of the Wizard of Oz story. There's The Wiz, Oz the Great and Powerful, and Yellow Brick Road. You know, Yellow Brick Road, the horror movie that came out in 2010. Oh, you've never heard of it or seen it. Well, let me fill you in, and of course answer the question, is it good? The story revolves around an entire town of people going missing after walking down this trail. 70 years later, a group heads down that very same trail to figure out what happened to them. As they walk down the trail, strange things start happening and they slowly lose their sanity. Now, this may sound very familiar, like maybe there's another horror movie about a group of people looking for an urban legend and end up getting lost in the woods as they go insane over the course of the movie. And you'd be right. Yeah, this is very similar to Blair Witch Project, but it's not found footage, but it does have a similar budget of $500,000. And at times, yeah, it shows, especially in the lighting. After a while, though, I did get used to the lighting as it sort of played into the grunginess and realness of the situation, and it ended up immersing me into the world more. But they did have enough money for whatever this thing is. Okay, so it's about people who get lost in the woods, but what is it really about? And also, what's the connection to Wizard of Oz here? Well, the first connection is that the town went missing in 1940, which is a year after The Wizard of Oz's release, and it's most likely that The Wizard of Oz would still be playing in theaters in the year 1940, and they even say this in the movie. The people visit a movie theater, and the person working there goes, yeah, the film reel of Wizard of Oz is real busted up because they kept replaying it over and over again back in the day. But she doesn't call it Wizard of Oz, she says the Oz movie because they legally can't say the full name.
That second one's the Oz movie. They found it left in the projector. It won't run. It's like worn to shreds from all the times they put it through the machine.
And that part actually caught me off guard, that it references the real Wizard of Oz movie, because I thought this was just like an adaptation of the story, like they'll head out into the woods, and one person's really stupid because he has no brains, the other one's really scared because he has no courage, and the other one's mean because he has no heart, all led by a woman who knows the way or something. But no, that's not what this movie is at all. The next reference to Wizard of Oz is that the trail that they go down is just straight up called the Yellow Brick Road. That's about it. And then literally the only other Wizard of Oz reference is that a character dies and then her body is later propped up to look like a scarecrow. She's dressed like a scarecrow. But yeah, those are literally the only references to Wizard of Oz directly. It's more so connected to the Wizard of Oz through its themes, like the objective of both groups of characters is to reach the end of the Yellow Brick Road. Our main character is named Teddy. He's the one who had the idea to do this in the first place. He's joined by his wife Melissa and their friend Walter, who's a psychologist. Along with them are sibling cartographers Daryl and Aaron, who also have an intern named Jill. There's a guy from the government there to make sure everything's going smoothly. His name is Cy. And lastly, there's the woman who is working at the movie theater who convinces Teddy to bring her along because she knows where the trail is and Teddy can't find the trail. And you might be thinking, wow, that's a lot of characters. And yeah, it is. It's way more than Blair Witch Project, which is 3, and way more than Wizard of Oz, which is 4. So one of the movie's weaknesses is trying to keep track of every single character and what they're thinking and how they're feeling. Like in Blair Witch Project, when they have to make a decision, all 3 people are engaged in saying what they think about the decision at hand and what they think is best. But in this movie, it's just like one person kind of says a thing and then the rest kind of go along with it. There is a point later on in the movie where they all split up, which I enjoyed because then you can get to know the characters a little bit better. But at the beginning, there's just way too much characters to know what's going on. So Teddy is our main character and he wants to reach the end of the road, just like Dorothy is the main character and she wants to reach the end of the road. Why? Well, Teddy wants knowledge. He wants to know what happened to those people who went missing 70 years ago. And Dorothy also wants knowledge. She wants to know how to get home. But what struck me is that really both movies have the messaging of the person should have never really left to go on the road in the first place. I always found it odd that at the end of Wizard of Oz, Glinda is just like, you've learned your lesson. Everything you could ever want is in your backyard and you should never leave home ever again.
If I ever go looking for my heart's desire again, I won't look any further than my own backyard.
That's an inspiring message to tell kids. Just don't achieve any more than your parents did. Just stay home and be content with your life. I get it, it was the 30s and I guess they wanted their kids to stay home and work on the farm. So Dorothy learns to never leave home again, and basically these characters in Yellow Brick Road pretty much learn the same lesson. It was a big mistake going down this road because it just tortures them and torments them, and they should have never left in the first place, and you could say that they were pretty content just living their normal lives and they did not have to go out searching for a bigger adventure. The knowledge on the other side is not really worth it, and this is specifically relevant to the character Liz, who's the movie theater employee who just kind of tags along in this. She says to Teddy, like, let me come with you, I don't have enough money to move out of this town, so let me just come with you. Which is a really weird thing to say when you think you're just gonna go on a few-day hiking trip, like, I don't have enough money to move, so let me leave for a few days. It's almost as if she knows that she's not going to come back from this trip, or else why would she mention wanting to move? There is a strong metaphor of suicide in this movie, like going down the trail is suicide, and all these characters are just doing that.
You always know the trail's there. Everyone does, and no one says it. You're embarrassed to believe it could be like a way out.
All the characters have to come to terms with their death and that they're gonna die on this trail, which is sort of a similar theme in The Wizard of Oz, that the wizard isn't real. The thing they wanted at the end of the trail isn't real, it's all fake, smoke and mirrors, man behind a curtain, and similar to this movie, maybe what they thought they wanted or thought was going to be at the end wasn't necessarily at the end, without spoiling it. And to be honest, I still haven't completely figured out what the ending of the movie means or what it's trying to say. I have my theories, but I'm not too confident in them to put them in this video. So if you've seen the movie and have any ideas, let me know. So the Yellow Brick Road and what it represents is the strongest connection between this movie and Wizard of Oz. So we've talked about the connection, but what about the horror? Is this movie actually scary? I've mentioned people dying, well, what happens there? Here's the thing, if you go into this movie with expectations of like a straight up horror movie, I think you'll be pretty disappointed. This movie definitely falls into the cosmic horror subgenre, also known as Lovecraftian horror, which Wikipedia describes as emphasizes the horror of the unknowable and incomprehensible, more than gore or other elements of shock. The physically scariest thing that happens in this movie I put in the thumbnail, so sorry about that. There is very minimal gore in this movie for a horror movie, but the gore that is there is actually really well done for the budget they had, and I thought it looked great. The real horror comes from the unknown force that is terrorizing these people in the forest. For the majority of the movie, this like old-timey music starts playing in the forest and they don't know where it's coming from. And it's playing at all times until it randomly stops, but maybe it's not so random, but then it picks up again. The music is sending messages to people, and I think this might have a connection with how the original Wizard of Oz movie is a musical, and how music is in that movie, and now music is playing in the forest.
None of your theories really explain the music, though. How do you explain the music? It could be God.
How can we all be crazy? I don't get that.
Right?
This is the music they were listening to over and over and over again. My grandfather said, you saw the film reels. They were addicts for this stuff.
So I will say a good majority of this movie is just people wandering around in the woods and they have no idea what's going on with them. So by that metric, I'll say if you like the Blair Witch Project, you should at least check this movie out because you might like it as well. And if you think the Blair Witch Project is boring because nothing happens and you don't see a monster, then this may not be up your alley. I haven't watched too many cosmic horror movies. It is a genre I want to watch more of, but I will say the one I have watched that is very similar to this movie is The Beach House. So if you've seen The Beach House, it's quite similar actually. My critiques would be it does drag at times with a runtime of an hour and 40 minutes. It can get a little repetitive, and I guess maybe the repetitiveness is the point, but it is a full 20 minutes longer than Blair Witch Project, which again, why I love Blair Witch Project. It knows exactly what it is. It gets in, does the scares, and gets out with no fat on it. And this movie, there's a little fat, I'll have to say. And the other critique is something I've already touched on. It's just the large cast size. It makes it hard to get to know these characters and their worldviews and what they believe. It's basically just people going, "Aw, this sucks that we're trapped in a forest," and they don't really differ. And because of that, they don't really have any differing ideas. So if you're expecting a movie about a killer scarecrow and a killer tin man and a killer lion that hunt the innocent final girl who's wearing a blue plaid dress that shows off her cleavage and she gets really bloody, this movie isn't it. And I'm glad it's not. For the past few years, there's been an increase in the trend of making horror movies about characters in the public domain that are specifically more children's characters. There's The Mean One and Mousetrap and Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, and Screamboat's coming out soon. And I have seen most of those movies, and I will say they're all fairly similar. And they all sort of rely on the crutch of, hey, cute thing you know from childhood is now a murderer who kills people, instead of actually engaging with the subject matter more and like doing more than just, you know, a mascot horror, as it's called, I guess. So Yellow Brick Road, even though it does have its problems, I'm glad it exists because it's so different from its source material and gives a whole new spin on The Wizard of Oz and what it means to go down the road and look for answers and leave home. And oh yeah, guess who was the costume designer for this movie? Robert Eggers. Yeah, that Robert Eggers. That's cool. If you want to check it out, it's free on YouTube right now. Maybe it might be region locked, so if it is, it's also on Tubi for free. So just go check it out, see what you think, and let me know. And you know what else is free on YouTube? This next video.